Good evening, and you're very welcome to In Business. It's Mary Mullins here with you until 7 o'clock this evening, and I do hope you'll stay tuned and get in contact with the show. There's a number of ways. You can call us on 066 712 3666. You can text us on 083 300 3300, or if you're on the web, you can email inbusiness@radiokerry.ie, and you can also catch up with me on LinkedIn if you search for Mary Mullins. Now, coming up later on in the show, we'll be catching up with some of the entrepreneurs from the Endeavour programme at IT Tralee. Do stay tuned for that, because they're finishing up the programme next week, so we'll be hearing more about that later on. But first, we hear a lot about BER and building energy ratings these days, so we want to find out just what it is all about. Here to talk more about this in studio is Mike Tehan and John Griffin of HSB here in Tralee, and builder John Carroll of Self Build Munster, and you're all very welcome to the programme.
Yep, thank you.
Mike, I might just start with yourself. You know, we hear a lot about building energy regulations, and, you know, people might just go, well, you know, it's not anything got to do with me. But basically, can you just tell us what it is, what a building energy regulation is, and what it's all about?
The building energy rating certificate is a certificate showing compliance to the new building regulations from 2008 July onwards. It's basically a cert to show the Department of the Environment that you're building the new house that you're building to the current regulations. To do with air tightness, insulation in walls, doors, floors, ceilings. There's also a part of the BR cert which deals with the Power Tel compliance, which is the heating and hot water. You have to use a portion of your energy from renewable sources, such as a heat pump or solar panel or biomass boiler, or even photovoltaic wind panels and so on. And after that, then you have to show compliance that you're reducing your energy by 40% and your CO2 by 31%. And basically, the cert at the end will show yourself and department that you are building your new home compliant.
Yeah, and who does it affect now? I mean, if you've built a new house, or maybe you're bought a house, or you're renting or leasing or something, well, I mean, who is it affecting?
Ideally, the process should start with your architect stroke engineer. You go in your initial consultation and you design the house and you say, okay, that's lovely, looks well and fine. But now is that house compliant with the new building regulations? And your architect or your engineer should then produce what's called a provisional BR cert. That's a cert based on the theoretical values of the building. We'll build our wall using this insulation, our floor using this insulation, we'll do our roof this way, we'll put in solar panels or a heat pump, we'll get an air tightness using this method and this method, and at the end of the day they should get a cert showing compliance. Then the house owner goes in, does his planning application, gets his planning permission, starts the house, and then your engineer architect will make sure that house is built according to the provisional cert. When the house is built, you then go on and do your what's called a final cert. That final cert then will confirm that the provisional cert was done.
Okay.
And that's signed off in the end, and that's uploaded to the national database on the ACI site, and that's there for anyone to see.
But you've said that you've come across an awful lot of people who don't know they have to have these certs and are running into problems when maybe the house is already built.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realise that this is a legal document, that it has to be done, for, like I said, for all new buildings that have been built after July 2008. So that's thousands of houses in Kerry alone.
Yeah, in the last 2 years.
Probably non-compliant, you know. It's
and
a very serious document.
What is happening to those people who maybe, you know, they've bought a house or they've built a house and didn't know?
At the moment, they're probably getting away with it on default, that the Department of Environment haven't got enough manpower to enforce these new regulations. Some are being caught out.
If you are caught, I mean, what do you have to do?
You may go back and put it right, you know.
So it could be very costly.
It could be very costly to do a second time round, yeah.
Yeah, and it basically it means going back, and you were talking about it there, having to have a certain amount of energy in the home.
It might be go back to do an air tightness test to show that your air tightness levels are up to scratch. That could cost a nice few €100. The next thing, I mean, you mightn't have solar panels, or you might have enough solar panels. It means going back and retrofitting solar panels to your roof, trying to get pipe work down to the boiler and cylinder. That could be costly. That could region of maybe €5,000 or €6,000 that you hadn't planned on doing, you know. You mightn't have enough money in your budget left to do it, therefore it's going to get another bank loan and so on and so on. But whereas if your engineer, architect or your designer initially had said, look, Mrs. whatever, this has to be done now, and do the provisional cert and get it done right, it would save the heartache at the end of going back retrofitting all this stuff.
Yeah. John Carroll, you're a builder yourself, so you're dealing with these regulations on a daily basis then, are you?
Yes, I would be, yes.
And how have you found it? Are people aware that they have to, go ahead and deal with these regulations and comply with them?
I would say people are generally not aware of it. In my case, I work for and on behalf of the clients. I'm always looking out for their best interest, and I would lead them down the road of the right direction, and that would be complying with regulation. I'd make them aware of what we're doing at all times. In this case, this house that we're talking about here, it's a particular house in the Kerrys that I built recently, and it has an A3 rating on it. The air tightness rating on it is a 1.9. The measurement minimum requirement on an air tightness test is 10. So,
okay.
I would have had informed them as we go down along the line what is required and that we meet all these standards. I would have got a provisional burst cert before we ever started so that I would know what to meet. It's not rocket science really.
Mm-hmm.
The regulation is there, and if you don't know, you need to ask.
Yeah, I suppose, John then as well, John Griffin, I suppose, obviously, it's regulation and you're supposed to have it, but I suppose it is going to help too down the line with regards to, energy efficiency in your home. It's going to save you money on bills really in the long term, isn't it?
Well, it will do. It will reduce the amount of fossil fuels that are being used. And if the technology is properly installed, it's going to reduce your energy bills considerably. I think it is unfortunate, but it is a mandatory requirement. It forms part of the legal documentation for your dwelling. And if you don't do the certs and you don't use the renewable energy portion in the building heating system, your house is not compliant. So you're not complying with planning. You will not be able to get a BER cert, so that makes the house unsaleable. You won't be able to rent it. It's a serious issue, and really people have to look very closely, because at the end of the day, it's not what the builder tells you or the engineer tells you. In the building regulations, it's the person who commissions the construction of the building is liable.
So the owner of the house, technically.
Owner of the house, yeah.
And you were talking about houses being rented out. I mean, is it only houses that have been built since July 2008, or does that affect homes that are older than that?
Any house that you want to rent or you want to sell, irrespective of when it was built, has to have a BER cert.
So any house at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if it's pre-2008 July, then it doesn't have to conform to the renewable energy portion of the building regulations, but it still needs a cert.
It has to have the cert, so that probably is news for a lot of people, and I'm sure there are lots of homes in Kerry, especially holiday homes, that are being rented out. So, I mean, it is a big deal for a person, really. I mean, you're saying they have to comply if they're being rented out. Who is it again? Is it the Department of the Environment? Mike, you may be able to tell us that.
No, normally when you're renting an apartment or a house, you'll have a legal document attached to that, a lease or something, and it's the solicitor will ask you for the BER cert to go with that lease. Obviously, people are getting away with it to some extent, but majority of houses that are being rented, apartments that are being rented, if asked by a solicitor, will have to go away and find somebody who can do a BER cert for them. No matter how good or bad it is, it has to have a cert. Mm-hmm. The reason is because, let's say you're renting an apartment 3A, for example, that could have an energy rating of, let's say, a D or an E. We had down the road, there was a new apartment block built recently that had a higher rating, say an A3 or a B, and they're similar price and rent there for the house, for the person who's looking at renting a property. This house or this apartment is a lot more energy efficient than this apartment or house.
So they'll be paying
therefore,
less.
I would reckon they would probably go with the more efficient property.
Because at the end of the day, they'll be paying less on bills then.
The bills is be higher, exactly. You could have an apartment block with electric heating. That would be very energy intensive. Or you have a better built apartment that would be maybe a small gas boiler or something in it. That would be less energy intensive.
Okay.
And smaller bills. But it's compulsory for all apartments and houses that have been rented or sold.
Okay. John Griffin, just going back to the certs itself. I mean, if you have a house now and you want to rent it out or sell it, and you haven't got a cert, I mean, how much money are you talking about having to go down this process?